This is Jennifer Nicholson with the ACE program, and I'm here to interview Roopesh Ramklass for our very first ACE Spotlight. So welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Jennifer.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to becoming an ACE?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm currently based in Toronto in Canada, and I work for Eclipse Solutions as a technical director of, well, a director of technology strategy is the formal title. But I came up the Oracle path, and I worked at Oracle Corporation way back in the late 90s, and I worked for global support. And I remember thinking, this is a fantastic opportunity, and I was learning so much at the time in support. Of course, earning what support guys earn is not great. So I moved around. I became a consultant. Over the course of many years, I managed to get a number of certifications, like the Oracle Certified Professional. I think I did the 8i tuning exams way back in the day, and I think I did the OCP on 9 from 9i onwards. I was always in awe of the guys who had the Oracle Certified Master certification because it was fantastic. And I was fortunate in my second stint at Oracle. So I left about the first time in about 2001. Went out, did a whole bunch of stuff, ran an Oracle consultancy in the meanwhile. And then I came back to Oracle in 2009, and I was in ACS. Again, I was kind of married to the support organization, and I got the opportunity to do my OCM, and I was really chuffed with myself because first one in South Africa. I was living in South Africa at the time, and yeah, that was cool. And then fast forward a little bit, 2013, I land in Canada, and the ACE program was like always this pinnacle of achievement and recognition. And I was working at another company, and a number of my colleagues were involved in the program, and I thought this is great. And so in the meantime, I had also had the opportunity to write books. So I guess this came from the fact that my parents are school teachers, and I enjoyed teaching. In fact, in my consulting business, I had a teaching department. So we had a few classrooms in our offices, and we would teach Oracle Core curriculum. And I developed a couple of my own courses around RMAN and those sorts of technologies. So I also figured, being a teacher, I was going to be poor, but I had this kind of need to teach in my DNA. So a friend of mine, John Watson from the UK, he was writing the Oracle Press books for the exam guides on, I think, the 10G version. And I used him as a substitute lecturer in my company at some point. And he approached me and he said, would you be interested in collaborating in a book? I'd never written a book before. So I helped out on the 11G book for the database and for the SQL exam guide. And then I wrote the 12C SQL exam guide as well. And I was hooked. So I did a couple more. I've done 5 now. So
wow.
Yeah, last year in January, I published the Oracle Cloud exam guide for the Associate Architect professionally. Oh, Certified Associate Architect exam. It's a mouthful, but that's a challenge in and of itself. But I'll talk a bit more about that later. But yeah, so that's my journey. So I applied for the ACE program a couple of years ago, and I was graciously accepted by the program, and I was an associate, ACE associate for a while. And in the meantime, I'd gotten onto the conference track and met the usual suspects, and I quite enjoy presenting and sharing knowledge. And I blog a little bit, but primarily the presenting at conferences is really good for me to learn and to share. And thanks to you guys and your app where you track our contributions to the community, I was able to be upgraded to a full Oracle ACE, and I was very proud of that a couple of years ago when that happened. So thanks for that opportunity.
And so when you started presenting at conferences, had you been attending just as an attendee first, or did you start at conferences just by presenting?
So I actually started in the in the 2000s, I used to present for the South African Oracle user group. There's quite a
Oh,
big Oracle community in South Africa, and we have the most fantastic resorts like Sun City in the northern provinces, and in Cape Town we had one of our big conferences as well, and it was well attended. Tom Kite used to come out and speak, so we had some really big names out there. But when I came to North America, I did always just go and present, and I kind of made it a rule for myself. As much as I have attended once or twice as an attendee. Primarily, I like to go to conferences where I can also present and share.
mhm.
So I've done Collaborate. Well, now it's been rebranded, the IOUG conference, Rocky Mountain Oracle Group, for the last 5 or 6 years, which is such a fantastic conference in Denver. And I got involved with the Toronto Oracle user group as a member. Initially, I would attend their events when I first got to Canada about 8 years ago. And about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I volunteered to work on the executive, and now I'm kind of the VP of the Toronto Oracle user group. And
Oh,
I
wow.
find it really, really nice for contributing to the local community here and trying to build up the relationships between the different players. There's lots of technical talent up here in Toronto as well. So it's been quite rewarding.
Wow. So you've done a little bit of everything.
trying to keep busy.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm guessing that might be advice maybe to other people as maybe starting out at a user group, presenting at a user group conference, and like a
Yeah,
smaller local one, and then or
yeah,
volunteering.
that's exactly right. So within our company as well, I've been encouraging some of our young stars, rising stars, to submit for papers, submit for conferences, and one of our team members recently got accepted for his first conference. And internally in the company, we kind of encourage a lot of teaching and sharing as well. So we have a weekly Friday sort of hour booked off where different people who've never done public speaking much before get the opportunity to share something about what they've learned or something they're interested in. And I really think it's a great way to find meaning in this career anyway, to share what you learn with others. And it doesn't have to always be like evangelizing, sales pitchy
Mhm.
sort of stuff. In fact, the more useful stuff is you've interacted with material, you can critically evaluate and say this worked really well, but this didn't work so well. So maybe consider doing this in a different way, and that helps somebody else. I mean, most of the technical people will know once you hit a brick wall, you're working through a problem. It's really useful to go online and, hey, someone else has hit the same problem and they were kind enough to write up their solution, and it just saves you a ton of time. And it's the same thing with sharing knowledge through presentation.
And what advice would you give somebody that is thinking about writing a book?
So it's a labor of love, and my wife likes to say it's you do it for the fame and not the fortune, because if you want to make money from writing books, write fiction, fan fiction, fantasy fiction, etc. But yeah, it definitely is time consuming. It's rewarding though at the end to pick up something in your hand, and you feel it's such a great achievement. It's a legacy that you leave behind in some ways. For the technology books though, like I'll talk about my Oracle Cloud Architect book, which I mentioned earlier. What is really interesting is I started off with this plan in my mind, and I kind of aligned it with the exam objectives on Oracle Education's website for the exam, because the entire point behind the book was somebody would use it as a study guide, take the exam, pass, and I thought, okay, yeah, we can tick all those boxes. But I took the approach, even with my DBA books, to kind of say, well, after the exam, I want it to still be useful, and let's make it a resource as well as something like an exam guide. So if people needed to go and look up something after the exam, if they forgot about it, it was useful in that way. So it had life beyond the exam almost. And I'm glad I did that, because when I started writing the book, Oracle had a ton of objectives in the exam. And about 6 months in, they changed it. And I was like, hang on, does this have a material impact on how I'm writing? And I was happy to say, okay, because I took this conceptual, use this book as a resource approach, it wasn't tied down to a specific version of the Oracle Cloud software, as it were. It was more about the concepts of infrastructure and the concept of paths and what they mean conceptually. So I put a big caveat at the beginning of the book saying, the screenshots in this book are not going to look like how you see it by the time you are reading this book, because at that point, Oracle was updating their cloud UX every 6 weeks or something. So what I rather focused on was the concepts of cloud and the concepts of just realizing that what's in the cloud is what you had in your data center anyway. And it's just virtualized to the nth degree with so much of flexibility. And it's all the knowledge we might have picked up along the way, learning about operating systems and network and storage. And it gives you so much of power and control to like create an architecture, and then you turn that visualized architecture into reality, and you just do it all behind your PC. You don't physically go and cable anything or rack anything in a data center. And it's the best thing. It's kind of totally reinvigorated my love for technology, because 20 years in, you do Oracle database, you kind of know a lot of it. And cloud came out and people were saying, oh, the DBA's job is dead. Heck no, the DBA's job is just beginning, and it's so exciting now.
That's great. So hopefully you're open to any ACEs contacting you to learn more about how to
Sure.
get started on writing a book.
Absolutely.
And then I guess, how has being in the ACE program helped you, if at all?
Oh yeah. Well, I get these cool swag. Well, I'm not wearing my ACE T-shirt at the moment, but
I'm wearing my ACE thing.
Yeah, I see. I see. Yeah. So, jokes aside, it feels good to belong to an elite group, and it feels good to be recognized by Oracle as such. I would recommend strongly that people who are contributing to the community register with the program, and even maybe register other people you know who might be too shy or lack confidence to join the program. Nominate them, because you can. And I've nominated one of my colleagues in the last few years who's been contributing for the last 20 years to the field. And he's a marvelous Oracle specialist. And he was able to get in, and he's a full Oracle ACE today as well. So
That's great.
I highly recommend it. Hey? Yeah.
Great. And then what about, it seems like you are incredibly busy, whether you're writing or presenting. So what about for fun? What do you have time to do?
Oh, right.
And which
Yeah,
part of Canada?
in Canada. I'm in Toronto, so we play tennis when we can, except for several months in winter. It's not really an option unless you have indoor courts. So what we've decided to do is start small, and so we bought snowshoes. My wife and I did for this winter. So we're gonna hit the hiking trails once the powder gets settled down. But Canada's fantastic for outdoor activities as long as you're willing to try it, right? So I have a number of friends and colleagues who come from Southern Hemisphere and warmer countries, and they kind of hibernate in winter, and I can't do that. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to embrace the
cold
north. Yeah, I mean, we are here. We will make the best of it. Yeah.
Great. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thanks so much for being our first ACE Spotlight interview.
I appreciate the opportunity, Jennifer, and thanks to you and Marwa for the excellent work that you do.
Okay.
Okay, cheers.